I think it was the challenge of it that made me want to do it, like want to conquer it in a way. But the more I did it, the more I loved it. And I just felt like every time I went to acting class, I was with my people because I had come from a very corporate world. I was working in finance at the time. So during the day, I would work 9 to 5 in a finance job. And straight after that, I would go to acting class from like 7 to 9 p.m. And that was my life for a few years.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on a really fun movie. This combines all of my favorite things. It's like rom-com, Australia, Asian families, tea.
Yes, me
This is
too.
this is an audience of your fellow actors. So I always like to actually start by asking, what do you consider your first job as an actor? You know, the first time you got paid for it, or just the first time you were like, I'm an actor now.
It was actually, I don't know if it was like the I'm an actor moment, but my first ever acting job was a commercial. It was my first audition ever. It was for a Sony commercial in China. So they were filming it in Australia, but taking it back to China and releasing it back in China. And they needed someone who spoke Chinese. And I just did one audition and then they cast me for it. It was really exciting.
So actors are going to be so jealous hearing this, but I assume that
It's
it
not.
wasn't always that easy.
No, you see, I have good luck landing it the first time, and then the second time is always harder. Uh, and I don't know if anyone else has had this experience, but the first time I went for a TV show, I booked it, but then I couldn't book anything for another like 50 auditions. And the
Wow.
first theater audition I went for, I booked it, and then I couldn't book anything after that. It's always the first time.
Yep.
And then after that, I don't know what happens. My luck runs out.
It's funny because I hear this a lot from people who like, they book something their first time out and they're like, oh, okay, this isn't so hard, and then go years.
Yeah. It's such a switch and bait. It's like, oh yeah, we'll give you a little taste of what success looks like, and then boom, you're back to reality.
Exactly. I'm curious, when did you first become interested in acting? Because I don't think you like grew up in an acting family or anything like that.
Not at all. Both of my parents are heavily academic. So this was a shock to everyone. Although now that I look back into the past, my mum's actually a drawer. She's an artist. She sketches. She's amazing. She does live sketches. But so I guess that is maybe the creative part I took. Um, so it started because my best friend asked me to do acting classes with her, and it wasn't something I was thought about doing ever because as an Asian immigrant, I never thought that would be a possibility for me. You know, growing up in Australia, we didn't see a lot of Asian faces on screen, so it never occurred to me as a career potential. And of course, my parents being academics were like, no, you have to study hard. So I never thought about it. So it was not until my best friend was like, oh, let's take acting classes together, that I thought, oh, that could be fun. And when I did do it, I realized how hard it was. I saw the people in my class, they'd been doing it for a while, so they were amazing. And then I remember doing my first scene and just absolutely sucking, for lack of a better word. And I thought, oh, this is actually really hard. And it got me really curious because after I didn't start till university. And so at that point, there was nothing much else that had really kind of like took me by surprise or made me think, oh, like I can't do this. So I think it was the challenge of it that made me want to do it, like want to conquer it in a way. But the more I did it, the more I loved it. And I just felt like every time I went to acting class, I was with my people because I had come from a very corporate world. I was working in finance at the time. So during the day, I would work 9 to 5 in a finance job. And straight after that, I would go to acting class from like 7 to 9 p.m. And that was my life for a few years until I booked the family law.
Did the finance people know that you had, they probably considered it like a side hobby, but
Yeah, they did because sometimes I would have to sneak out of work to do auditions during the day. And I was really lucky that my boss at the time was quite supportive because I don't think any of them thought that it was going to go anywhere. So they were like, okay, we'll just let her do her cute little hobby.
by the way, is
Yeah.
that friend who got you into acting, are they still acting?
No, she
Isn't that funny?
dropped off. I know. She dropped off quite quickly, actually, because she ended up moving overseas. She did do a radio gig overseas, and then now she's back in Australia. But she's actually teaching
Oh,
filmmaking.
oh,
Yeah.
that's great. Okay. I mean, it's, performing is hard, like you said, and if you can find something else that you really love, I say go for it.
Yeah, I know, I know. I don't wish it upon anybody, but I think all the actors would agree with me when they say they just have this innate pull and it just it drives them and they're so passionate about it and they just can't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, congratulations on Five Blind Dates.
Thank you.
Are you a fan of rom-coms to begin with? Because
Yes. It's my favorite genre of all time. That is what I have grown up watching. I choose to watch it. If I have a choice when I'm, on the plane and I'm choosing a movie to watch, I'll always look for the rom-com.
Yep, me too. And then I'll be crying hysterically, and the poor person next to me is like, "You're watching Sweet Home Alabama. What's sad about
Yeah.
that?"
Yeah. It's just so beautiful. Yeah.
It is one of my favorite genres, and yet I'm surprised by how many films don't get it right. Like there's a
Mm.
formula to a certain degree, but it's hard to make it
Yeah.
funny and charming and surprising.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because there has been a lot of great rom-coms made, so that benchmark is quite high, I think. Standard is there, which is good.
So, what was sort of the initial spark or inspiration for the movie?
It's a great one, actually. I was on a professional blind date with my co-writing partner, Nathan Ramos Park, amazing actor himself as well. And I had been conceiving this rom-com in my mind, and I was looking for a writer to co-write it with. And another mutual friend of ours, another talented writer, Ivan, he recommended Nathan. I read some of his scripts, and I was like, oh, he's actually really, really funny, really talented. And so we met up together at a Starbucks on Sunset and Vine, and we just started chatting and we hit it off straight away. And I pitched him this rom-com idea originally with Chris Hemsworth, and he was like, "Yeah," I was like, "We got to make this movie, and we got to get Chris Hemsworth." And then he's like, "Wait, let's make a movie that only you can do. Like, tell me about your life, and let's make a character that no one else can play but you." So I told him about my whole life story, how I used to have this tea shop in Sydney, an online tea shop and tea store, because I love tea so much. I'm so passionate about it. And then I told him about how I'd moved to America 2 years ago. I gave myself this like 2 year ultimatum to succeed. Otherwise, I'm going to go back to Australia, my finance job, because it was getting to the point where I was like, okay, I need to make a decision. Like, which way am I going to go and commit my time to? My parents were really worried about me not getting married and having kids because I'd broken up with, all my boyfriends in Australia and went, bye, I'm going to America. And they're just like, are you sure about that? And and just like the fact that I love every year I get my fortune told by clairvoyant. Yeah, just to see how my year's gonna go, just so I can plan ahead. And she's like, oh no, you should stop spending money because you're not gonna have any work for a year. I'm like, okay, good idea. And it's so accurate. I've been seeing her for years and everything she says comes true. It's wild. So
I need
all
their
these
info,
facts.
please.
Yes, I'll text it to you afterwards. And so then after like talking about my whole life, he was like, okay, this is amazing. And then we came up with Five Blind Dates based on all these aspects of my life. Yeah, we just like, what if your family had to like set you up on these dates and you had this ultimatum and this fortune teller said this? We're like, oh yeah, yeah, this is great. And we just kept adding on, and then boom, Blind Dates came about.
Something I really love about this movie is that, like, I feel like maybe 20 years ago in a rom-com or in lesser rom-coms, these guys would be bad guys. And they're not. It's
Mm,
not right for her. I actually appreciate how upfront they are about what they are. You have like sort of the mama's boy or like the guru, and it's like they're right for somebody. They're just not
yes.
right for Leah. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Because I think Nathan and I have both been through some, romantic journeys in the past. And one thing we both came to the conclusion is that nobody's perfect, but there is someone out there who's perfect for you. depending on who they are. Yeah, and that was a theme we definitely wanted to um, put into the movie.
Right, you're not really making fun of them. The
Mhm.
situations are funny, but it's like these people are trying and you appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad you got that out of the movie.
So you knew, you were writing this role for yourself. Have you written for yourself often? I mean, you create your own content, but had you ever written a screenplay before?
No, this was my first one. Like I said, Janelle, I get good luck first time round, and then after that, it's just dry desert.
No, no, don't put that out there. It's going to be many more.
You're right. You're right. You're right. You gotta change that mindset. Yeah.
Well, how did you sort of, you obviously reading a lot of scripts as an
Yeah.
actor, but were there books or were there anything that like helped you write that first screenplay?
You know what? I think I read that book that everybody reads called Save the Cat.
Yes, right here somewhere.
Yeah, mine's somewhere in that bookshelf.
Yep.
And then the journey of a character or something like that. I did. I wrote read a bunch of books. I read. I did Aaron Sorkin's masterclass on the masterclass app. I was really insightful actually, and like Steve Martin, all of the kind of like comedy writer actors. I just wanted to kind of pick their brain because I also did stand up and I did um, UCB, all of the improv classes. So I got a lot of inspiration from that, and I did some like skit writing with my other improv friends, and I think an amalgamation of that. Just and Nathan, he was super helpful because he's been writing for 12 years, so he was definitely a mentor for me in that process. But that was yeah, basically all the prep I did. Hmm.
When you were writing it, did you ever think of yourself as the actor, like, oh no, I'm going to have to play that. Like maybe I don't want to write that.
You know what? I didn't because
Good.
it was when I was acting. I was like, why did I write that for myself? And
You did have those moments on set.
yeah, on set. I was like, wait a second, what am I doing? But then, yeah, so during the process, no, I completely separated myself from actually having to play any of the parts.
And
I
then when
think
you
that's
got to the
important.
set, you were like, I only have myself to blame for this.
Yeah, I do. And I was like, wait, maybe I should have added more. I could have pushed it further. It goes both ways.
So, as the writer, I'm guessing you got to skip the audition process.
Yeah. Yeah.
You would be playing this role. What is sort of your relationship with auditions? Have you made peace with it, or is it still a
Mm.
struggle?
You know what? I have my moments for sure. I think especially when it comes to roles that are really hard to act in a sterile environment. Like the other day I did one where I was just trapped in a car underwater, like the water was coming up and I'm trapped, my legs strapped, and I have to like act that I'm, struggling and dying. Those ones I struggle with so much. There's some actors I can just like play that, but I need the environment to be there to really struggle. So I just feel like an idiot sometimes when I'm there, like struggling. But I think the trick is getting the right reader because you can have the best reader and they just make you feel so comfortable and get a really good performance out of you. Whereas if another reader's like not giving you anything, sometimes it's really hard to act against that already in an already sterile environment. So I think I've just over time have kind of learned the tricks to get the best performance out of myself. And for me, that's just getting a good reader, being prepared, and then just like effing it. Sometimes you just got to have fun and just F it and do like, on set when you do an FU take, you just got to do an FU take for your audition. And that's what I find like most effective for me. And yes, now I'm at peace with it because what else can we do? We have no choice. So we got to carry on.
Have you ever had any of those, sort of nightmare audition stories, or has it been pretty good in the room?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
I haven't, yeah, I haven't really had any nightmares. The only things that I like, probably things that I think I could have done better. Um, and the only example I can think of is, sometimes in acting class, they tell you to kind of like be the person, the character, like walking into the room and walking out of the room so they can see that you embody that character, even if it's not you normally. Anyway, so I was playing this character who's meant to be a goth and a complete biatch. And so I walked into the room and acted like an absolute bitch. And I was like, yeah, they're just gonna think that I'm a bitch in real life, and they're gonna see that I am the character just because I embody the character as a human being in myself. And then I walked out and I was like, why did I do that? Because they probably think I'm an actual bitch, and who wants to work with an actual bitch? So that was, nightmare story pro for them based on me.
Did you get the part?
No, no, I didn't. Not surprising because they're probably just like, who does she think she is?
Yeah, yeah.
It's stupid, so stupid.
I'm curious,
Yeah.
working in America and then in Australia,
Mm.
is the audition process much different?
Oh yeah,
Really?
fully. Yes. Okay. I think 'cause in Australia, they really expect you to be off book and super prepared because auditions come far and few in between in Australia. Like I probably have like 10%, like 10% of the auditions than I do in America. So because there's just so far and few in between, they expect you to put your best foot forward and to be fully off book so you can be like really immersed in the character and the casting director will feel comfortable giving you notes and they will just that you can't bring your size into the room. Maybe you can bring it in, but you have to put it in the corner. You can't have it in your hand. It makes them really nervous. It's like the other way around. If you have it in your hand, it means you're not prepared and you don't take your job seriously. And they're going to already think that you're not going to be good if you have the sides in your hand.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and if you forget your lines, you just have to either just like fake it and just keep powering through or ask them to stop and be like, I'm really sorry, can we just go again? Yeah, you have to like be super prepared. So I would spend days on end on my auditions and it would just take up so much time. And I think in Australia, I probably felt way more drained because you do so much work and you for nothing because you book 1 out of 50 auditions you do. But I think I felt a lot more relaxed when I came to America because I could have the sides in my hands. But then at the same time, it feels like because I was so used to doing the auditions off book and not looking at my sides, I think I did worse with the sides in my hands because it felt like because you have that like plan B, but then I'm not used to doing like the looking down and still being in character. So I would actually go out of character when I look down and then having to like kind of find myself again. It was actually like a reverse learning process for me. Yeah.
Did they give you more time to prepare in Australia if they expect you to be that prepared? Okay.
Yeah. You usually get a week.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And do you find you get to spend more time in the room as well? Not necessarily.
Actually, no, it depends on the role, I think. If it's a really big role, they want to spend more time with you because obviously they want you to get the role. They're hoping you do the part, so they try and do more takes with you. Yeah. Mm.
What was it like for you? I don't know how involved you were with the casting of Five Blind Dates, but you have this
Mm-hmm.
amazing ensemble. It's
Yeah, so
so
we're
great.
lucky.
Did you do, I guess, any sort of chemistry reads with some of your leading men?
Yeah. So initially, Nathan and I put our suggestions forward on who we thought would be great for those roles, and then we went out and auditioned a bunch of people, and then the director and the casting director shortlisted all the lead roles, and then I got to audition with my best friend. We did a chemistry with the best friend and with the sister character Alice because I think they're quite new to the industry, so they just wanted to see if they could in under pressure kind of perform and the whole process. Yeah.
And I bet as an actor, you probably were good at putting them at ease because you've been in that position before.
Yeah, I think so. We were joking around and talking, and I just want to make them feel like this isn't a stressful experience, that it's just like friends hanging out. and siblings hanging out. So I actually did like talk to them like they were my friends or they were part of the family already. And I think they all did a really good job. And the director was amazing too. A funny story, because I got put in this role without being cast. Like usually the director chooses all the actors, but because I wasn't cast and I was just kind of given to him, he was really nervous about working with me. So actually in those auditions was also my audition to him. So after those chemistry reads, he said he felt a lot more comfortable working with me because he could see, oh, I can actually perform. Because he hadn't seen a lot of my work in the past. Yeah.
Is it Shuang Hu, the director?
Yeah,
And
sure.
how did you sort of come to him?
Well, we really wanted to find an Asian Australian director for this movie, obviously, to try to kind of keep it as authentic as possible. And if I'm being honest, there's not a lot of Asian directors in Australia. The industry, unfortunately, is quite small, and we reached out to all of them, and I think he was just the one with the most amount of experience, but also the one that suited the role the most. He has a lot of experience in TV and in film, on high level films. And so we just thought he was the most, I guess, suitable director, and also the one that could kind of blend comedy and drama really well. Yeah, so we were just so lucky the schedule aligned.
If as an actor, what do you like from a director? Do you like someone who, spends a lot of time with you, or someone who sort of like lets you do your thing, or maybe it changes from day to day?
Oh, I think it definitely changes from day to day. I think it depends on the scene. I think if it requires a lot of work or I'm not quite sure how I want to play it and how it sits in with the rest of the movie, I try to spend a bit more time with the director. And the good thing about this film was we had a lot of rehearsal time. We got a whole month, which I know like it doesn't seem like that long actually on some movies, but like for a rom-com, I think it was quite a decent amount of time. And it was a month and a half we had of rehearsals. So, and every day we were meeting with Sean and Sean and another character, and we would just work scenes together and talk about the script and talk about the characters. So yeah, I felt like by the time we got on set, I was quite prepared.
Was there any improvisation? Because you have a very funny cast, and it all sounds so organic. I was that, but great writing sounds organic.
There wasn't that much improv. I think Sean, he likes to stick to the script as much as possible. And I don't know if it was because he was trying to respect me, because me being the writer, I was there. So I think he was trying to respect our writing, which is really nice. But as much as possible, we were trying to stick to the script, but there was some improv sometimes. But even some of the improv that was added, we kind of discussed it beforehand, because we would improv in rehearsal, because we would rehearse the scene before we shot. And then we're like, oh, we like that. And then we'd be like, Sean, what do you think? And he'd be like, oh, yeah, that's great. Add that. So it was kind of like rehearsed improv. Yeah.
Going back to the chemistry of it all, I always think it's so interesting when you put strangers together and say, okay, act like you've been sisters your whole life, or, act like you're madly in love. And the rehearsal probably helped form those relationships. But
Mhm.
do you know when you're having good chemistry, or sometimes you don't know and then you see the product and it turns out you did?
Yes, I'm not going to name names, but there was definitely some actors where I thought, oh, we didn't have like same kind of chemistry offset as we did on set, like what we're meant to have on camera. One of us gonna read. Like, yeah. I was a little bit curious, but it actually turned out really good on screen. And I wonder if it's because, the editing was good, or, I don't, there's a lot of factors that added to that. But I was like, oh, I'm surprised by how that turned out. Hmm.
Well, yeah, because you can't really force chemistry. And if you try to, it just makes it worse. So sometimes you just have to, I guess, trust the process.
Yeah. You're like you kind of sit in it, and you just be I think put your energy out there, like the energy you want to see, and then somehow it just translates on screen, and it really does work out when you're truthful yourself, regardless of the other person.
So knowing that you co-wrote it and you put yourself in these situations, what did end up being the most challenging scene for you?
Hmm. Oh, oh, that's a really good question. I think it wasn't so much challenging. I think it was more emotionally draining. Um, there was some scenes where I unfortunately there was a lot of cut to the movie. Am I allowed to say that? I don't know how much I'm allowed to spill. But there was you saw the grandma character in the
Yeah.
flashback. Yeah, she was actually in originally when we filmed it, she was a big part of the film. She was in a lot of the major scenes that Leah goes through. She kind of reflects and she thinks about grandma. And so those were really emotionally draining because every time I saw that character, or I saw that actor, I actually did think of my own grandma and instantly just I'd be crying just looking at her because I'd be thinking about if my grandma was actually here in this situation. So maybe that's why they had to cut it because every scene I'm with her, I'm just crying the whole time. They're like, oh, that's too sad. It's making
Oh,
it far
so
too emotional. Oh, but actually, I just remembered I had to learn how to do a tea ceremony for this movie. This the scene where I'm making the tea for everyone when the shop when I redo the shop and so acting while I was doing it, I was that was the only challenging part to remember all of the bits and not make it look like I knew what I was doing and that I'd been doing this for my whole life. That was probably the most challenging part, actually.
Well, I want to remind everyone that the film hits Prime Video on February 13th, just in time for Valentine's Day. Again, it's such a fun film. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me and appreciate everyone for watching.